Okay, so now we start getting into some of the really challenging things to draw here on this tablet, but bear with me and I will do the best that I can here to get you through this. Let me start drawing something here. Alright, that came out fairly decent, but I'm giving you a real short segment on here, and I've got a longer one that I'll come up with here shortly. But just take this little tiny snippet. Well, for argument, we're going to say it's 6 seconds long, but go ahead and judge this and see what you think is happening here. So walk your way through all the different steps. You've got your QRS, P waves, PR ratio, PR interval, R to R, and rate to give you the name. And you probably won't be able to name it yet, but go ahead and answer the questions, pause the video, and come back when you're ready. So if we look, QRSs are nice and narrow. P waves are upright. They're round, symmetric. PR ratio, well, oh, it's 1 to 1. No, not quite. What do we got here? I've got 2 P waves before the QRS. So this is not a 1 to 1 PR ratio. That becomes very important on here. It's more P waves than QRSs. Now, what's kind of cool on this is if I look at the PR interval. Well, what is it? Okay, well, see, it looks like it's 3 blocks. No, wait a minute. That's longer than 3 blocks. So it's an inconsistent PR interval. This becomes one of the most critical rules that you can have on this type of rhythm. Inconsistent PR interval. What's nice on this is that for the bass rhythms, you kind of have a 50-50. It's likely going to be one or the other of these two rhythms. And I'll teach you as we continue through and get through the last pieces of these rhythms. I'm going to teach you some different techniques on how you can differentiate which is which. There's cross-checks and there's ways that you'll say, oh, yes, I confirmed it. I've now got secondary confirmation. This is definitely what I thought it was. But what I've found is with these rhythms and with the blocks in particular, I've had nurses and I've even had docs that are coming in here, medics that have been out for many years, and they try to look for a certain pattern, and the patterns can be a little challenging until you've been reading rhythms for years. And honestly, if that's the first way you learn to read the rhythms, it's more cumbersome in my opinion. So I've been teaching this for years, and hopefully this is going to work well for you. Inconsistent PR intervals, you kind of have a 50-50 shot as what type of rhythm it is. I'm going to push you to say you have to confirm what you find through this short version, but the PR interval here is inconsistent. How about my R to R? Well, R to R, it's actually a little bit irregular, and I'll admit is kind of sloppy. These three should be pretty much the same distance, and then there should be a pause where I've got this extra beat. And I'll show you some different examples here when we go to the computer examples and the other rhythm examples. But essentially, the R to R is irregular. So if I meet both of these criteria here, I have a PR interval here. PR interval is inconsistent, and the R to R is irregular, then almost always we're dealing with this type of rhythm. If both of those two are true, we likely have, and well, we'll say this is sinus Brady just because the rate's slow, sinus Brady with a second degree type 1. There's a nickname for this. It's called Wenckebach. So Wenckebach is just a fancy way of saying second degree type 1 AV block. Um, Secondary type 1 and Wenckebach are synonymous with one another. There's actually another classification system. The gentleman that came up with that is called Mobitz. So you can call this a Mobitz 1, and then the secondary type 2 is a Mobitz 2. I haven't heard that term much at all out in the field. I have heard Wenckebach thrown around, and it's kind of funny because if you've got somebody that's new on there and say, oh, hey, you should go and look at room 16. The person in there has Wenckebach. It's like, ooh, do I need to wear a hazmat suit? No, it's a heart rhythm. You're not going to catch anything. Trust me, it's not contagious. So if the person has Wenckebach, what they're talking about is they've got this weird pattern of what's happening. Now, the cross check for this that is relatively important, and I want you to catch, take a look at this for a second. I might have you pause the video here. Take a look at this and see, do you see any pattern to that PR interval? Go ahead and pause, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, if you look, this first PR interval is very short. The next one gets a bit longer. The one after that is even longer until I have a P wave without a QRS. It's a drop beat. And if you remember, we discussed this, second degree rhythms, the AV blocks, the primary thing that we're looking for is dropped beats. I have P waves without QRSs. And then I go back, it kind of resets itself. So if you think of this, this is sort of like driving in traffic and then there's an accident or something happening, a cop pulled over a speeder, and you got the first car that just kind of flies right on through like there's nothing wrong. Then the next car goes a little bit slower. Ooh, what's going on? The person behind them starts getting a bit aggravated and takes even longer. When they get up, they say, wow, this is really cool. Hey, take my selfie with this. And then finally you get somebody that gets fed up and they just don't want to go. They'll turn around and they'll go back the other way. So that's where we drop a beat. But what's cool is once somebody actually turns around and goes the other way, now there's been time for the traffic to kind of reset itself, so the next car can just kind of go through there without too much of a delay. There's no one blocking the road. This other one has kind of re-smoothed out the traffic a little bit. And if you think about this from the heart standpoint, this is a variable block in what's happening within your heart. It allows the first beat to go through normally, but then the AV node doesn't quite reset itself completely. So it takes a little bit longer. You might get, an extra small block or two in delay from the atria of the ventricles. Then you have even a little more delay. And eventually we get to a point where we drop a beat. And then that gives the AV junction time to kind of reset itself. So the AV junction didn't have enough time to let the QRS through, but it did have enough time to let this one go through right when it happens. So that's the pattern that you're going to see. Now, please don't get locked on this that it's always going to be 3 beats and then a dropped beat. It's not that way. You could actually have, from your PR interval perspective, you could have a short, then a medium, then a long, then a longer, and then drop a beat. Then you reset to short, medium, drop a beat, short, medium, long, drop a beat, short, medium, long, longer, longer, drop a beat, short, medium, long, drop a beat, short, drop a beat, short, medium, drop a beat. But it's this pattern that's happening. Every time you see that drop beat, the heart has a chance to kind of reset itself and it goes back to the shorter PR intervals on there. So that's the cross check for this. When you see the PR interval is inconsistent, but the R to R is irregular, you're pretty safe to say this is most likely Wenckebach. This is most likely a secondary type 1. But take just that short bit of time to go back and say, okay, short, medium, long, drop to beat. Short, and see what kind of patterns happen on here. So, with that said, let me go ahead and clear this out, and let me show you a little bit longer version of this. So, go ahead and pause the video, walk your way through this, and kind of apply the rules and see what you come up with, and then I'll walk you through it. Go ahead and pause. Okay, so QRSs here are clearly narrow. P waves are round, upright, and symmetric. PR ratio, well, it looks kind of 1-to-1, but now here I've got 2 P waves and then a QRS. And down here again, I've got 2 P waves and then a QRS. So no, it's not a 1-to-1 PR ratio. I have more P waves than I have QRSs. The PR interval, though, is inconsistent. It doesn't take much to go here. This one's a real short PR interval. That's a super long PR interval. It's not even close. I understand it's my hand drawing there, but it's not even close here. The R to R, this is a poor example of this. You'll see it better on the computers, but it's irregular. So these three would end up being about the same distance apart, and then there's a pause. Then I got three together, and then there's a pause again. So like I said, this is a little bit sloppy example. I'm going to go ahead and show you a computer example of this one right away so that you can see this. But essentially, PR interval's inconsistent, R to R is irregular. We think we got Wenckebach. Let's confirm it. Start out with a short PR, then a longer still, then I dropped a beat. Short, kind of long, then longer, then we dropped a beat. And then I'm back to short again. So I've basically confirmed that I have this Wenckebach through that combination. PR interval is inconsistent, the R to R is irregular, and then we go back and do that quick cross-check just to make sure that, yes, indeed, your PR intervals are gradually increasing until we dropped a beat. Okay, so here's the computer example on this, and I realize it's going to be a little bit rough to see, but should be able to kind of get the idea of what's happening here. So if I take a look at this, go ahead and walk your way through this. We're going to say this is a 6-second strip. You're actually looking at all about half a large block short of a 6-second strip, but for our purposes, it's a 6-second strip. Go ahead and analyze through this, and I'm going to have you pause the video, walk your way through all the steps, and then we'll come back and discuss it. Okay, so the QRSs here are narrow, clearly. They look all consistent. The P waves are round, upright, and symmetric. This is all nice and computer, so it fits all the rules a little bit better. So P waves are round, upright, and symmetric. My PR ratio, well, 1 to, whoa, nope, I've got an extra P wave in here. So it's not a 1-to-1 PR ratio. I have more P waves than I have QRSs. How about my PR interval? Is it consistent? We'll take a look at that PR interval right here. That's only about 2 blocks. And if I look at this one, that's really, really long. That's like 7 blocks, 8 blocks. So it's an inconsistent PR interval. That's kind of happy dance time. Yay, it's an inconsistent PR interval. Then I need to look at my R to R. Well, take a look at the distance here. And if you want, you can use large blocks. There's a bunch of different ways you can confirm this. We'll show you some in class, but showing you here, if I count blocks, that's 1 large block, 2 large blocks. It's about 3 large blocks. 1, 2, 3. Nope, that's different PR or R to R interval. Now here, I've got a cluster, and then there's a big pause again. And I've got an irregular R to R. So we have those 2 rules here that apply. Basically, let me get the right thing up here. And of course it's in the wrong spot, but tell you what, let me scoot this down here a little bit. And if you look, PR interval is inconsistent. That and that, those are different PR intervals. So, and you can look across here. You've got some real short ones, you've got some real long ones. PR intervals are inconsistent. The R to R is irregular. I've got these pauses in here. So if PR intervals are inconsistent and R to R's are irregular, most likely we're dealing with Wenckebach. But in order to be diligent here, let's confirm that. So if I look, there's a PR interval, it gets longer, and there's a drop beat. I've got a P wave without a QRS. Now it kind of goes back to a really short PR interval, then a little longer, then a little longer, then we dropped a beat. Then we're back to short again. Little longer, little longer. We've just confirmed this is Wenckebach. So practice makes perfect on these. These are about the most complicated rhythms that you're going to deal with in this class. And yes, you will have several of these that you're going to need to answer on your test 3. So take some time, do some practice on here. You've got a lot of practice rhythms in the book, and we're going to come back and do a large group, but we still have one last group of AV blocks to cover before we can do that.